Welcome to the second episode of Creatives on the Come Up. This week, our guest is Corey Davis. Corey Davis is an award winning filmmaker and behind the scenes leader equipped with a strong passion for film since the age of 6. He values hard work, determination, authenticity, and persistence. Having studied the craft in recent years, he aims to become a next generation storyteller, aiming to use his gifts to the greater good and encouraging others to be their true, authentic selves. Now, let's get into the conversation.
Welcome to the stage where dreams take flight, where every brushstroke, every note, every line becomes a beacon in the night. Creatives on the come up, shine bright. We're the ones who dare to dream, turning visions into what they seem. With every step we break the mold, our stories bold and gold. Creatives on the come up, we rise. With passion in our hearts, we never compromise. From the canvas to the mic, we make our mark in the world of art. We leave our spark. From the streets to the studio, we find our way. With every challenge, we find a way to stay. Our creative little force that can't be tamed. In the game of life, we're not just players, we're names. So join us on this journey, where dreams are made. Creatives on the come up, we're here to stay. With every episode, we light the way. Creatives on the come up every
Hello,
day.
my name is Corey Davis. I am a film production graduate from Clayton State University. And, for the past 2 years, I've just been trying to find my way into the industry and get a start in any way, anywhere and any way that I can.
You're like a lot of us out there who are trying to get their feet in the door. You have a documentary on YouTube, and people listening can check it out if they are interested. Can you tell us why you want to work in the film industry?
Well, for me, ever since I was a little boy, film has just been something that has always been embedded in me. At least at the age of 6 is where I started to have this sort of love for it. But, I always grew up watching a lot of television and, just seeing different people that look like us, in these different spaces, it just kind of motivated me to be like, hey, yeah, like I see them doing it. So it's like, wow, I kind of want to be along the same realms of that. And, I've always been this sort of creative, imaginative kid growing up. I've always had like imaginations in my mind of different, characters that I wanted to see come to life. And, it was just sort of my way of escaping, you know, the realities of the world around me at the time. Because, I come from a very small town and there's not really much to do. There's not really many places to go. And so it's like, for me, it was just trying to create some sort of entertainment space for me to, become in tuned with the creative world. And that's kind of just how I just kind of fell in love with it, just having that creative, imaginative mind and, just creating a little fantasy world for me to play around with.
So, what is it about stories that you think interest you? What made you want to tell stories?
We all have a story within us. And I was always that person that always wanted to share a part of myself that, that I was never able to exemplify in real life. And so for me, film has always been sort of an outlet to exercise that. And, just everywhere around us, like the people we interact with, the actions that we perform in our everyday lives, like that's the story within itself. So, it's kind of like you're seeing many different stories unfold in the real world. And so I always found that very interesting, in the way that it shows that, there's a lot of morally gray areas within us. And I kind of feel like, storytelling it's a good tool to use to exemplify what we go through in the everyday world.
And as you've gotten older, how has your inspirations changed throughout the years?
As I've gotten older, I've started to see other, people that I looked up to, and I started to see how they were going about certain things. And one, it motivated me even more. And two, the older I've gotten, the more I've learned about the real ins and outs of the industry. And it just made me want to kind of go a little bit on this independent path for right now because, at least in the independent world, you can set your own boundaries. You can, you know, be your own person, and, you don't have to worry about some studio head or, the powers that be on your back about how this story should be told or how that story should be told. So especially when, you know, we went to Atlanta for school, just seeing that independent market and meeting all different types of people from many different backgrounds and going to different events, they kind of just inspired me to, just be my own person and kind of do my own thing.
You talked about going independent and starting your own projects. What has been some challenges to that? And also, what has been some of the positives that you saw from going the independent route?
I will say when, going independent, it's kind of self-funded. You don't have some big studio backing you up, or, you don't really have a lot of people to kind of, financially support you. I mean, outside your own family and maybe a few friends here and there. But since me, I work a regular 9 to 5, so it's like I kind of just use some of that money. Like I'll save most of it, but then I'll set aside some of it to where I can, buy some equipment or whatnot, or, buy just things that I would need to, help me make these projects. And I would just, kind of have to just be frugal about how I want to go about, spending and all that. So that was one challenge. And then another challenge is basically, when you're independent, you're self promoting, you're always trying to market yourself out there on social media. And sometimes it can be a little lonely, and it can be a little frustrating because it's like you feel like a lot of people just aren't paying attention, or you're doing the best that you can to get yourself out there, and you feel like no one's watching. But then you have to remind yourself, just because they're not liking or commenting all the time, it doesn't mean that nobody's watching. Like there's always somebody out there. But on the bright side of things, to get into the positives, I do believe that it is rewarding to kind of see your work go out there and be recognized by people you would least expect. Like, I've not to toot on my own horn, but the documentary has been pretty successful so far in terms of the film festival market, and I'm glad that some festivals have been looking at it and they've been giving some positive responses to it. So it is rewarding to see a project that you worked so hard on finally get some traction and do pretty well and pretty decent. So I am proud of the hard work that I've put in. It's always very rewarding when you're working on a project, whether it be on your own or with somebody else or with a group of people. It's always rewarding to see the end result that you guys have put together. So yeah.
Talk about festivals for a second. What advice would you give to someone trying to submit their own short films to film festival, sorry?
One thing you need to do is know your film. Like know what your film is about, know what subject your film is based on, and then you can narrow it down to certain festivals that kind of meet that particular standard that you set for your film. Now, it's okay to be broad and submit to many different festivals, but don't aim too high right away. Like don't just go immediately to the Sundances and the cons and the slam dances or whatnot. Like it's okay to start off with smaller venues that don't really get a lot of attention, because what I've learned is that if you start small, there are certain festivals that are partnered within each other, so they're kind of subsidiaries. So if your film does well in one festival, that festival is going to notify their partner festival or other festivals that are within that network, and they're going to start to come to you and say, hey, we see that your film is doing well in this particular festival. Can you submit to us? and they'll even hook you up with a lot of discount codes too to, help you out. So my thing is it would be to, don't sleep on the small festivals. Like take your time and submit to them. And it's all about trying to build your notoriety one by one. And once you do that, then like I said, just kind of start a little narrow and then you can, broaden out a little bit as you get more and more recognition. Don't feel discouraged if it doesn't get selected because, every festival has a different set of criterias that they set out. So if it doesn't make it in one festival, it doesn't mean that your film was bad or it's not a good film. It just didn't fit the needs of that particular venue. But just because it didn't fit the needs of one venue, it doesn't mean that it won't fit in another. You just got to keep finding the right ones, and that's where the research part comes in. You got to research what that festival is all about and, submit accordingly. But other than that, like, yeah, just don't be afraid to submit and don't be afraid to make adjustments to your film if need be. Like, some festivals there are pretty gracious about that. Like, if you didn't make it the first time, they'll let you resubmit. Just keep researching, just, keep fine tuning and you will find the right one.
A company like Disney wasn't a success overnight. Like it started with just one man having a dream and going at it. Like he was like Walt Disney. He was a ordinary man, and he started where he was at, and it just built from there. So it can be done. We both went to Clayton State. Can you tell us how going to Clayton State impacted your journey so far?
Definitely it was affordable. It was a lot more affordable than colleges that I've looked into at the time. And for me, the fact that it was about 25 minutes away from Atlanta, that was another advantage. It gave me a chance to kind of stay in tune with events that were happening in the city and, meeting a lot of networks and, establishing a lot of connections there. That was one of the major advantages for me, being there. And also just meeting some remarkable people like you guys, along the way and us working on many different projects together and, just staying in contact and, staying connected and, just kind of keeping each other close and, for anything that could come up in the future. It basically just allowed for me to expand my horizons and help my skill sets and allowed for me to help other people's skill sets as well, just us being there together in that space. And at the time I appreciated it, but now like since being out, I know for me it's been almost 2 years now since I've been out, but it's starting to make me appreciate it even more. Like just looking back and thinking about it, it's like, wow, like, yeah, like I really miss it. I really miss being in that space and being well connected with everybody that was there. And, it allowed for us to go in many different directions and go on different heights. And, it was a beautiful thing.
And you technically don't have to go to college to get into film, but I think yeah, it definitely has advantages like you pointed out, and especially like with building community. Someone told me this like a lot of people try to network up, but they don't try to network across. And like yeah, so like don't forget like the the people that you're growing up with because you never know what could be in your future.
Right. Like you never know where they could end up in and, they might end up in a certain space and, you know, they could bring you along and be like, "Oh yeah, I went to school with this person. Yeah, like he's good at this or she's good at that. So, let me reference her and, we can go up together."
So you just said you are just graduated college. What have you been doing since college? Just enlighten the listeners. What have you been doing?
I like to separate my post college adventures into two different journeys or different phases, I guess. So the first phase, being out of college, like my first year out of college, half that time or majority of that time was spent with me unemployed, and I was looking for work in my field. I applied to many news stations. I applied to radio stations. I just basically applied to remote jobs, just anything that I could do to get into, this particular field and keep me hungry and busy. But those came to no avail. Some people either didn't respond to emails or calls, or they did, but they did like months later or weeks later and said, "Hey, we decided to move on to another candidate." So I had to deal with that for the first 8 months that I got out of school. But then I got hired at my regular 9 to 5 that I currently work at now. I'm a dealership photographer. I take pictures of cars on the lot, and yeah, and I put them on their website so people can come out and look at them. I mean, it's a decent job. It's not something I want to do forever, but it's a good start. And I'm just trying to save up some money so I can move back to you know the greater outer Atlanta area and continue my journey there. It's not gonna lie, it is a little frustrating at times because you're trying to save and save and save, but then obstacles with this economy and inflation is just kind of hard at times to save what you really want to. But I'm still in there. I'm still trying to push forward and still doing like small projects on the side, whether it be helping to promote some local artists in my community or, just making, little small snippets or clips, at my house or whatnot. So I'm just trying not to be discouraged. That's my biggest thing.
Yeah, as someone who has received their fair share of rejections too, yeah, the struggle can be real. Trying to stay encouraged, but yeah, I like to think about it this way. Well, that no just leading me closer and closer to my next yes. That's how I try to think of it. But yeah, like, so how did you stay encouraged during that time when you were getting all those rejections, you know?
Well, for one, I have to thank my family. They've been very supportive of me. I'm still living at home with my mother for the time being. She's been very supportive and very understanding about my situation. And so, she was a big key to that. And some of my other family members, they've also stepped in and kept me encouraged. And, I have this one friend of mine back here at home. She's been encouraging too. So, just everybody around me in my inner circle, they've just been trying to say, hey, you're gonna get to where you want to go. It takes time, just be patient and you'll get there and, it'll pay off and I appreciate all that. I do. It's just, sometimes, I can't sit here and lie and say that it's, not frustrating because it does get frustrating at times. And it's like, oh man, like, ah, why not now? Like, sometimes we want it now, we want it here and now, but it's like we have to, I don't know. It's this thing in my mind that's like, okay, you're young, slow down, you know, it's okay. Like, you're doing something to work towards what you're trying to do. And that's the important thing. You're not like, it's not like you're just sitting around doing nothing. Like you're putting the work in, you're trying to invest in your own future. And, and I think that's just something that, um, people our age, we should consider, when going on these journeys is giving us, giving ourselves some grace, because, it is hard, it is not an easy feat, but at the end of the day, one day you can look back at all that you've done and say that, wow, it was worth it. And, it will pay off.
Yeah, and it's well, what you said is like really, yeah, being learning to be content about where you're at, and not rushing the journey. And I've been learning too, like now's like the time to, to still develop your craft, get those new skills, learn those new techniques, and in the end, it might make you more hireable too. So, how would you describe your career right now? Like, where would you describe where you're at your career?
Let's see. For me, I guess you can say I'm a little past the novice, but not at the well, close to an intermediate level. Like I'm kind of just taking small stages at a time. Like I'm still trying to get my stuff out there. I'm still trying to do what I can, outside of my regular job to make a name for myself and, be on that independent path. I'm still trying to learn new skills to, better perfect my craft, like you said. And, I'm still learning. I'm still just trying to soak up as much knowledge as I possibly can. And so, I am doing things, as mentioned earlier, outside of my job to kind of help me stay on course with what I want to do. Like whether it be just, pulling out my camera and just, recording a leaf falling or something, just practicing these concrete skills, outside of the classroom or outside the textbooks, just to make sure that, that I'm still sharp or that my mind is still sharp about, what I've learned. And, I try to apply that to my everyday life. And so as far as, my career, I guess, just I'm still in that stage where I'm just trying to get in there. You know, I'm still beginning, like, I'm at the still at the first level. So
Hey, you're on your come up, and that's okay. Like, what would be the point of your career where you would say, I've made it. Like this is where I want to be at.
I would definitely say that point would be, I don't know, maybe if one of my works get on a major streaming platform or it gets into select theaters or whatnot. It, it doesn't even have to be like a super like mega attention seeking type of thing. It just as long as I'm able to get out there somewhere, and if I can affect at least a small group of people, and then over time that would spread around. And I'm someone who's grateful of even the smallest of wins. I try to be grateful for every little thing that happens. Whether let's say a film of mine gets played in one theater, or whether it gets played at a local church or whatnot. Like just anything, just to show people and share to people that, hey, this is what I love to do. Like that's my main focus. It's just impacting people and, sharing my gifts with everyone. And as long as I can impact one person, at least one person, then it lets me know that I'm doing something right.
We didn't talk about what you actually like to do in film production. So, like, what is your main interest in film production?
I like to consider myself a faceted person, but mainly I like to direct and write. I also act on the side from time to time and, edit my own stuff as well. But mainly more of the creative positions, directing and writing. I've always, you know, as I mentioned in the beginning, I've always had these creative thoughts in my mind ever since I was a little kid. And, I've always wanted to find a way to translate those thoughts and get it out there. And so, directing and writing have always been these sort of interests that I felt like, okay, I can create whatever world that I want to create in my head and translate it to, this piece of paper and just do it. Like just write it. Like, just let your imagination run wild. Yeah, it kind of helped me. For me, it was a coping mechanism, pursuing those positions like, it was like a form of escape from reality, and kind of just create my own fantasy world, or create what I've always had locked inside my head. So you know it was very it's a very rewarding thing to.
What's your process when you write?
When I write, I try to adapt things that I've seen in real life, or interactions that I've had with people in real life, and I try to make it to a point to where it can be believable to an audience member. So before I write anything, I will go around, maybe to a park, or to the store, and just walk around and just listen to people talk, like as I'm walking, just hearing different snippets of what people are saying, and I'm looking at how people are interacting with each other in real life, and then I will take notes of that, and then I would apply that to some of my own stories and some of my own characters. So I'll create different outlines based off of what I've seen and what I've heard in real life, and just to make it feel more realistic, and to basically just write write what I know, and write what I've been exposed to, or write about things that I've seen other people go through. And so just being observant and having a sharp mind, that definitely helps a lot. And it definitely helps with making your writing more concrete.
What about directing? What's your approach to directing?
Let's see, with me directing, I always like to have a keen eye for what I'm trying to go for. When it comes to directing, okay, using my experience with working with different actors while I was in school, um, I would try to just let them be the motor and the driving force of what I like to see, I guess, from my own work, and I let them interpret how they think, or how they feel the character should be. And I would kind of just, hey, like, just say, hey, like, how what would you do in this situation, or how would you feel in this situation? Like, directing, I kind of approach it the same way as writing. I try to, you know, have a more realistic perspective on it. Like, I like to reflect things that, you know, could be real in real life, and try to, exemplify that as close as possible. Um, Even if the story is like a fantasy, or sci-fi, or whatnot, I try to keep certain realistic elements that you can pull from the real world, and just let people do that, trusting their own talents and trusting their own ways of bringing that to life for me. I kind of just use that as a way to create this fantasy fictional world, but using realistic situations and realistic emotions from the real world as a way to make people believe that, oh, okay, this world like could be real, even though it's fiction, but like they're like, okay, I can see this happening in real life. And so my approach with directing is basically just mixing a little bit of reality and fantasy to make it somewhat of a way to coexist with one another.
What advice would you give to someone starting out in this industry?
Start small, and don't feel discouraged if it doesn't happen right away, because I know we look at TV and these films, and we think, oh wow, like I want to be where they're at, or I want to be behind the scenes, and doing this and doing that. But one thing I learned about this industry is that just real talk, it can be a little deceptive at times, and sometimes the grass isn't always greener. So you know you want to make sure that you surround yourself with positive people that want the same thing as you, but at the same time, people who are going to have your best interests at heart. And if you want to be a creator, I would say definitely start shooting random things. Just start shooting anything, and keep on practicing that. And the more you practice, it'll just become muscle memory to the point where you'll start to get better and better and better. And definitely, for me, I've been watching a lot of YouTube videos as well, about certain cameras, or certain techniques used to make your films look a little bit more polished. And so that also helps as well. And you know don't ever think that the learning ends in the classroom. Like, there's always more for you to learn even outside of the classroom. And that would be just my best advice that I could give, is just keep on learning, keep on growing. Like, there's always something for us to learn. And just and most importantly, just don't give up. Don't feel discouraged. You know, it's a process. It'll take some time. And trust me, I know. I know it firsthand. But if we're persistent and consistent, then you know it'll pay off.
Last question for you. How can people connect with you and support you?
I noticed there are quite a few people from time to time. They'll interact. Some people will like my posts at least, or and then a small few, they'll, let's say I post a video, they'll share it on their story or whatnot, just to help spread the word. And so I've made it a pact in my mind to support other fellow creators, because I know what it's like to not get enough support. I know what it's like to feel like you put your all into something just for people to just scroll past it or ignore it. And so I try to use my platform as a way to help other people progress as well. I'm someone who, I don't believe in gatekeeping. I believe that we can all strive for excellence. So it's like I try to help others, and they try to help me as much as they can. And so basically it just helps me to stay motivated, and it helps them to stay motivated. So it's a blessing though to have like people like that, even if it's like a small few, people to just believe in your vision and share your stuff, or interact with it. It's not a lot, but the small few that I have, it means a lot to me. So, I've definitely been using social media to my advantage, and, just trying to connect with people. And, some of them, they're actually paying attention. So
Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the conversation I have with Corey, and that you show him your support. Also, let me know what you got out of the conversation. Send a comment on whatever platform you're listening on and let me know. I hope you are encouraged to keep pursuing your dreams, even when it seems like you are receiving nothing but no's. Don't let the no's distract you. It's not the end of your story. Your next chapter is around the corner. However, it is the end of this episode, so come back next week to hear from my next guest, Brandon McGee. Don't forget to show your support for the podcast however you can. Whether it's following the podcast on social media, giving the podcast a good rating on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, your support is greatly appreciated. Until next time, this has been Creatives on the Come Up.
Welcome to the stage where dreams take flight, where every brushstroke, every note, every line becomes a beacon in the night. Creators on the come up, shining bright. We're the ones who dare to dream. Creators on the come up, shining bright. We're the ones who dare to dream. Turning visions into what they seem. With every step we break the mold. Our story's bold and gold. Creators on the come up, we rise. With passion in our hearts, we never compromise. From the canvas to the mic, we make our mark. In the world of art, believe leave our spark. From the streets to the studio, we find our way. With every challenge, we find a way to stay. Our creativity, a force that can't be tamed. In the game of life, we're not just players, we're named. So join us on this journey where dreams are made. Creatives on the come up, we're here to stay. With every episode, we light the way. Creatives on the come up every day.